Mom's Playground. Hooray!
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
It is an incredible story of starting at the bottom and working your way up. Not the most familiar face, Shelley Herman, behind the scenes writer and I could say executive at NBC. She started as a page, and page is kind of like the little young happy tour guide. And she kind of cracked her way into the industry. She has written for many, many game shows. She was actually a contestant on The Dating Game at one point. Countless stories about Andy Kaufman, Richard Pryor, Freddie Prinze, Gilda Radner, Robin Williams, Paul McCartney, and more. The book is called My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page, and her name is Shelley Herman, and our guest here on Celebrity Jobber. Hello, Shelley.
Well, hi there. It's a pleasure to speak to you.
Oh, pleasure to speak to you. I have to say, I always like to tell people how the sausage is made, the behind the scenes stuff. And my good friend Art Sears, who helps me, book my podcast, he said he did improv with you many, many years ago.
It's so many years ago that he forgot one of his best jokes, and I had to remind him of it.
Tell me. So, I would love to hear, because he's not a very funny man.
It's kind of a dirty joke, so I'm not sure.
Oh, it's the internet. Go ahead, Shelley. I got to hear it.
Okay, it's a joke. I was just saying it, but he talks about how he married a woman, and he purposely married a woman who was a lesbian, and for their honeymoon they went to Hawaii and were looking for chicks. That was the joke.
I had no idea he was that kind of guy. You learn something new about somebody every day.
I guess so. And I love the fact that the word jobbers, I've seen that word, and I didn't know exactly how it was used. And when I looked you up, I learned what a jobber is.
Well, it does have, I think, several meanings. I can tell you that I was called a jobber by a morning show host that worked for me when I was the program director of a radio station a few years ago. His name was Bubba the Love Sponge, and he would call me a jobber because, journeyman, not real successful, perhaps. It's used in the wrestling industry. So you're not a jobber. It kind of sounds kind of fun, I think, for the whole premise of this podcast is talking to, celebrities. You might not be the most recognizable face, but you are, a very accomplished television person, and I would say has somewhat of a rags to riches story. Would you agree?
Yes, and also, even though I'm on the West Coast, I'm aware of Bubba because of his work with the Howard Stern Show.
That's right.
So I know who he is. Yeah.
I just wished him a happy birthday a few months ago, but he never texted me back. He's probably still mad at me. But I wasn't the one that fired him. But
no.
So, Shelley, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? You grew up in Pittsburgh or in Philadelphia?
Well, I was born in Philadelphia, but my family left because my mother's sister had moved out to California, and it seemed like the land of opportunity. And once they got here, my mother and her sister got into a huge fight.
Uh-oh.
And my mom was kind of and my dad were kind of on their own with a newborn baby. So my dad settled into a job as a bartender.
Okay.
And my mom was a stay-at-home housewife, and it was quite a struggle. And about 7 years into it, they decided to divorce.
Oh boy!
And there's nobody in my family that was in the entertainment industry, but my mother loved Photo Play magazine, and I guess in my mind somehow I thought that these people were our friends or our relatives. I mean, I would see albums of Frank Sinatra who looked somewhat like my father, and I thought that he was like Uncle Frank because he was so revered in the family. And so when my family separated, my mom and dad divorced, I had remembered asking my mom, tell me about the time you told me about Dad and you divorcing. And she kind of snickered a little bit and said, when I told you, you said, the only people you know who are divorced are Eddie and Debbie, Reynolds and Fisher.
Wow.
Because of the magazine.
Right. Wow. I'm just so glad, Shelley, that you moved out of Philadelphia at such a young age and you didn't have a chance to develop that hideous accent.
Don't have the hideous accent, but I do Jones for tasty cakes.
You do?
And I still love those.
So your parents divorced when you were a young age. You moved out to California. Did that affect you growing up? Was that, kind of you were young, so was that kind of a big thing in your life?
Well, at the time I would have said no, but in hindsight, when I tell people about certain things I did as a child, like I would sneak into my mom's purse and I would get 25 cents and go to the Food Giant supermarket and buy a packet of dry Kool-Aid. Okay. And I would take it home and I'd make Kool-Aid and sell it in front of the house, for like a nickel a glass or whatever. And then I would sneak the money back into my mom's purse because she was always talking about how poor we were. And I didn't want her to feel bad, so I wanted to try to help.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's pretty sweet of you as a young kid. You could have got at least $1 or $2 a glass. Nowadays, I see those lemonade stands. I think it was $5 a glass the other day. I was like, wow, inflation has really hit an all-time high.
Well, I didn't have your business acumen back in the day. So.
Right. So when you were younger and you were in California, any dreams of being into show business? I mean, did you go to college and then, what did you major in when you were in college?
Well, keeping in mind that I'm like 5'1", I'm not like one of these, gorgeous women that you see who are in show business. I would consider myself average looking. So I never really thought of being an actor because, only the tall, pretty girls got to be actors. So I gravitated more toward writing and comedy. And I was very lucky that when I went to school at Agora High School, which it was a very small town back in the day, we had a marvelous theater arts department. Jim Gilchrist and Eileen Daniel. They let us do great plays and musicals, and we were working till 1 a.m. building sets, and it was a real kumbaya atmosphere of creativity. So I gravitated toward that, and when I went to college, I was studying journalism and kind of segued into, let me see about this TV writing stuff.
Interesting.
And there weren't a lot of girls doing that sort of thing when I was doing it. So I didn't think anything of it except, I was always used to working in this communal atmosphere, so why not try it?
So I'm just, I got to tell you, I'm looking at the cover of the book, which, by the way, My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page, and there's a picture of you and Johnny Carson on the cover of the book. And I got to say, you look like a young Mary Tyler Moore in that picture. So I don't think her looks were considered average looking.
Oh, well, I thank you for that. And I'm very proud to say that the earrings that I'm wearing in that photo, I can still fit into them.
That's excellent. So very funny. Very funny. So explain a little bit to us Neanderthals out there that don't exactly know. Now, I'm from New Jersey, so I've been into the city, quote unquote, a few times. And I believe a page is like one of those happy kids that's outside of 30 Rock. And when you are just like kind of walking around and you look interested, they come up and they like start telling you about it. And, Saturday Night Live's taped here. Do you want to sign up? Do you want to do this? Or, tell me a little bit about what an NBC page is, and it's kind of a legendary program that NBC is probably one of the few that only do it these days, correct?
Well, CBS and ABC still have pages, but they never had the type of program that NBC had. And this year, the NBC Page program is celebrating their 90th anniversary. Some of the people who came out of the Page program, Match Game host Gene Rayburn, Regis Philbin, TV executive Grant Tinker.
Wow.
Even Chuck Barris was a Page at one time at NBC. And recently, Aubrey Plaza, and she actually got to fulfill her dream from going from being a Page to guest hosting Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
That's a real full circle moment. But the whole idea of the program is an executive recruitment program. So it's more than just ushering TV shows and giving tours of, in the case of 30 Rock, they still give tours. Here in the Los Angeles area, they have the executive training program, but the tours are now handled over at Universal Studios.
Okay.
So the whole idea of getting this job is getting your foot in the door.
Okay.
And that's even a bit of a challenge because when I was researching the book, I was told that they receive about 16,000 applications a year for the jobs. And if you fill out the form online, they also require a resume, a CV, and a 2-minute video on why you'd be the perkiest little Page that they could ever hire.
And out of those 16,000, how many actually get chosen?
They say it's about 2%, meaning it's easier to get into Harvard
Wow.
than to become an NBC Page.
That's incredible. So your foot's in the door. You're an NBC Page. Now tell me the progression from your foot in the door to now being on the Johnny Carson show and writing for all these game shows and TV shows. How long of a Page career did you have before you started writing or getting into quote unquote show business?
I would say almost immediately, I became a fly on the wall in my off hours. When I wasn't ushering the shows and giving tours, I would sit in and watch rehearsals of TV shows. Back in the day, it was Chico and the Man.
Loved it.
Sanford and Son.
Loved it.
Different sitcoms that would kind of come and go on the NBC schedule. Dick Van Dyke was doing a variety show where I met Andy Kaufman. Midnight Special was being taped there. So it was like the best grad school that I could go to. And kind of by sitting around and hanging out, meeting people, I got a chance to work, this is my old showbiz adage. If you work for free, you can work all the time.
That's absolutely right.
And through some of my connections, I got to work behind the scenes, and I started doing game show run-throughs, pretending to be a contestant, seeing kind of, how they put game shows together. And through that, I would start writing some of the question and answers or some of the jokes and things like that for these different run-throughs so these production companies could try to sell their shows. I also had a chance, and this is what I call when somebody's trying to get a job, I suggested them they put on their Lucy Ricardo thinking cap.
Okay.
because Lucy on I Love Lucy would not be deterred if she had an idea for something. The only caveat I give to that is make people want to see you, not have to see you. So find a way to make yourself indispensable even before they know who you are. And an example of that would be when we were giving the tours, I realized there really wasn't anything that was geared toward children. It was mostly adult information that we'd be speaking of. So I went to the head of my department and I said, why don't we have a children's tour? And she said, well, because we don't, blah, blah, blah. And I said, if I write something special for children, can we try to incorporate that into the tour? And she kind of looked at me like, yeah, sure, go, fine, have fun. And I came back with something, and they incorporated it into the tour.
Wow. I mean,
So my first writing job at NBC.
That's incredible, though. I mean, because again, I'm reading your bio and it says countless stories, behind the scenes encounters with all these major celebrities. Tell me a little bit about your encounters with Richard Pryor and Andy Kaufman.
Well, it's very funny because I knew Andy just when he was starting to get really big from Saturday Night Live. And he would do guest spots on The Tonight Show or Midnight Special or, like I said, on Van Dyke and Company. And we became friends. The type of friend who would call me at home. I was going to college, living at home, and my mother got very excited. Andy Kaufman's on the phone. Jewish surname. Sounds like a prospect. And then I showed her his act on Saturday Night Live, and she was horrified.
Was it the Mighty Mouse act?
That's it.
Oh,
Here
man.
I come to
Save the day.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So Andy, it was very. He told me a couple years into our friendship, he goes, I've been hired to do this sitcom, and I don't want to do it. My manager wants me to do it. He says it's good exposure, and it's a really horrible show. Don't watch it. And that was Taxi.
Oh, boy. I think people watched it.
Well, flash forward several decades later, I married a guy who was one of the actors on Taxi.
Which one?
My husband is Randall Carver, who on the first season of Taxi played John Burns.
Okay.
Who was kind of the naive country bumpkin-y kind of guy.
Right.
On the show. He destroyed Cab 804. That was his
That's his claim to fame. Okay.
and he married a girl having just met her at a bar.
Right.
That was another storyline that he had on the show. So I didn't see Taxi when it first came out because my friend Andy told me not to.
Right. Oh, my gosh. Do you remember your first job? What was your very first job before any of this?
You like beyond babysitting jobs and selling
I mean, the very
corner?
first thing, maybe not getting Kool-Aid, selling Kool-Aid for 5 cents a glass, but maybe did you ever work at a department store? Like, what was your first gig as a teenager?
My first job, and when I think back on it, there was a restaurant named the People Tree Inn, and it was off the 101 freeway at Las Virgenes Road in Calabasas, which Calabasas at the time was almost a one-horse town. It was such a small town. And it was a place where you could get a good steak and a drink, and a 17-year-old had no business working in there. And I was the salad bar hostess.
Oh, boy.
And it was my job to wear my little skirt, a little skirt that had matching panties underneath, and boots. And I would bring a little tray out to the salad bar, and I'd fill up all the condiments for everybody.
Man.
And I would come home, and I just would reek of cigarette smoke. But occasionally, the teachers from my high school.
Oh, no.
And no, but what was really cool is I could get them free drinks.
Okay. Okay. I see how that works for you.
Yeah. So
well, that's
that
cool.
was kind of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you see in one particular moment, this incredible career that you had at NBC, was there one defining moment that you consider your big break?
Yeah, and I kind of have Elvis Presley to thank for that.
Oh, God, please tell me this. I know we got to go, but please tell me this story.
Quick story. Second job out of high school, I worked for Sears. One of the gals was able to score tickets for us to see Elvis in Vegas. So we piloted our cars, took off for Vegas, saw Elvis. It was just like the Austin Butler movie. It was exciting, magnetic. It was so fabulous. So 3 of the girls took off because they wanted to really have a good time in Vegas. And I was stuck with the girl who got me the tickets to see Elvis. And she was kind of the wallflower girl. And we sat over cherry pie and ice cream at the little coffee shop at the Hilton and talked about our hopes and dreams. And she said, well, my mom's best friend works at NBC. Let me see if she can make a phone call and get you an interview.
Wow.
Because I had seen these people standing around at NBC when I went to a taping of Midnight Special in high school, and they were wearing these ugly polyester outfits, doing nothing, watching free rock and roll, and I thought, I want that job.
Incredible. And that was it. That was the end of that. I mean, and an incredible career, a book, which is called My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page. You might not know her face, but Shelley Herman has written Supermarket Sweep, more than 1,000 hours of game shows, and in the business, and a great book if you want to, peel the curtain back and find out how the sausage is made inside Tinseltown. Real great talking to you, Shelley. Thanks so much for chatting today.
Let's chat anytime.
Great hearing from you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Pretty cool story. Grows up in California, moves there when she was very, very young. Father was a bartender. Mother was a stay-at-home mom. Parents ended up getting divorced. It did affect Shelley. She said she didn't know it at the time, but years later, she's definitely recognized that. Found a love for the theater and the arts while in high school, and then kind of zipped into a journalism major, probably a communications, something like that, when she went to college, but was trying to focus on a career in writing and comedy. So she figures what better way to get into the business by, getting your foot in the door at NBC, low-level page, which again is one of those happy kids that's, giving tours and answering questions when they see onlookers outside of 30 Rock or the studios in Burbank. She became friends with Andy Kaufman. She was privy to the secrets of Joan Rivers' feud with Johnny Carson. Countless stories about her time with NBC and behind the curtain look at, how the business is kind of operated. Very, very interesting. What a cool guest. And the book, once again, My Peacock Tale, Secrets of an NBC Page by Shelley Herman. So thanks for listening. Of course, if you like the podcast, we appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. All our past episodes are up on CelebrityJobber.com. You can check us out on Celebrity Jobber Podcast on Instagram. Stream us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. So until next week, thank you as always for listening to the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. I'm Jeff Zito.
The Podcast Playground.